The 2023 election may be over, but many analysts and groups are still looking into the electoral process. While the concluded election had a large turnout of voters, some individuals have been arrested for causing violence and trying to rig the process. With the United States of America and Nigeria sharing bilateral relations, with the former being one of the relocation destinations for many Nigerians, the U.S. government has imposed visa restrictions on the individuals who undermined the democratic process during Nigeria's 2023 election. Although some Nigerians have asked the U.S. government to reveal names, the United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, in a tweet, simply reiterated America's commitment to strengthening Nigeria's democracy and the rule of law. Well, joining us in the studio is lawyer, public affairs analyst Fred Nzako. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good to be with
you.
Welcome.
Right. And via Zoom is public affairs analyst Abraham Great. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you. Thank you for having me once again.
Good morning.
Now, the U.S. has imposed visa restrictions, and this has generated a mixed bag of reactions. I wonder what it is for you, because the U.S. says it is doing this to help strengthen our democracy. And the question for some persons is, do we need external persons to help us strengthen our democracy? Isn't that for us to do as a country?
Thank you. For me, it is very important to look at the timing of this. I wouldn't know why America choose to react at this point in terms of the fact that the current election in Nigeria has petitions in court. There is a judicial process. And I know that America is very strong on upholding the rule of law. Now, because there is no verdict or determinations on the actual election, I don't know, maybe America is doing this as a deterrent even to the judicial personnel themselves or to create a scare. The other thing to look about this is that America is actually not in the best of position right now to be able to impose bans on people, because American election, since 2000, I think from the election that brought in George Bush II with Al Gore, you see that there have been issues, there have been discrepancies, there have been anomalies. In 2016, you saw the intervention of foreign countries or companies like, the Cambridge Analytica and stuff like that in American election. The last election was seriously contested. There were some suppressions and stuff like that. So I don't know if America is in the best place around the world right now to flex that kind of muscle on a nation like Nigeria. And definitely, we're going to see some, relationship in terms of diplomacy. There may be some relationship strain with this action.
All right, Fred, let's come to the studio now. This is not the first time the United States is going ahead to impose visa restrictions, or even threatening to impose visa restrictions on Nigerians who have participated untowardly towards election here. I wonder what difference this makes, especially when they say a measure is being carried out to act or to serve as deterrent so that people don't do this again and all of that. When you look at what has been happening over the years, America's reaction over the years, and then how elections play out eventually, when you relate them together, what difference have you seen?
Well, you may not have seen much difference, but it is an indictment on our internal system, the failure of our own domestic system to punish electoral offenders. Nobody can tell us, Nigerians, that there were not a lot of infractions in the last 2023 general election. Nobody can tell us that there were not a lot of breaches that really needed the arm of the law to look into. And we have the law. But to what extent do we observe the law? The 2022 Electoral Act, with which we conducted the 2023 election, between sections 114 and 129, 15 whole sections all dealt with issues of electoral offenses. All manner of electoral offenses. It has covered all shades of offenses, starting from the primary, starting from the registration of the political parties down to the collation of votes. The question is, how much do we observe this provision of the law? And what America has just done is more or less an expression of the frustration of the international community in the failure of Nigeria to conduct election that will assuage the expectations of the people, at least satisfy your own people. The very moment you satisfy the people of Nigeria with credible, free, fair election, both in practice and in action, that even the optics will show that, oh, Nigerians are doing well. The very moment you do that, you would have satisfied the international community. And why is the international community interested? All around the world, electoral issues have caused problems in the stability of countries. And whenever there is such instability, whenever there is such problem, the rest of the world will hear it. The rest of the world will feel it. The rest of the world will bear the brunt. Look at what is going on in Sudan today. All the countries around Sudan are having problems contending with the upsurge of migrants that are running away from Sudan. Nigeria is, they say, to be over 200 million people. God forbid we have such challenge in Nigeria. The whole world will be unsettled. And it is important that to maintain international peace and dynamics of democracy, we must get it right, and we must continue to get it right, so that we shouldn't have such a scenario where there will be a crisis in Nigeria and the people will be running helter-skelter, and the rest of the world, it will create massive humanitarian crisis all around the world. And that is why the rest of the world is interested. And that is why they go ahead, not just to mouth it, they put their money where their mouth is. They are development partners in our electoral process, and they give money to conduct good election. If they tell you, if ANA gives you the statistics or the figure of how much they receive from international donors, you'll be shocked that it is real handsome amount of money. Now, if you collect money from such international donors, the international development partners, why wouldn't you use that money to ensure that our electoral process is upbeat? So that is why they are saying that. Of course, in the real practical terms, you can say it goes to no issue. One, because they have always been giving this warning over and over, and then they will never give you the list of the people. Even in this latest warning, there's no list, and people are saying, how do we now know who are the electoral offenders? So that we also will internally begin to distance ourselves from them, or give them domestic sanction in addition to international diplomatic sanction. But the judicial system will not allow them, because you cannot. Sanction is punitive in nature. Anything sanctioned is punitive in nature. And the natural doctrine of natural justice, where you must hear the other party out, will hold your leg, that you can't kick such a fellow without hearing the fellow out. And that is why we are saying it is left, and they cannot try the people in America because they are in Nigeria. So
the offenses were in Nigeria. The offenses were in Nigeria. Against Nigeria.
Against Nigeria. So the least they can do, or the highest they can do, is to give this kind of warning. They know from their own internal intelligence gathering and from the images they pick and our own complaint here in Nigeria, they would have made up their mind who are involved. But they cannot come out and say, these are the people, because that would mean being judgmental.
Exactly.
And being judgmental means that they have not given the other party fair hearing for them to explain themselves. You may even be holding Mr. A without knowing that the person you saw in that image was the twin brother of Mr. A.
Okay, Fred.
So if you now begin to sanction...
Are you reminding us of 1999
No. These are all our historical experiences. So by the time you now... But it's only when you put such people through judicial process that you now confirm, oh, it is really Mr. A that committed the offense. And that such judicial process can only take place in Nigeria. So I think it is an indictment on our system and a call, an urgent international call for Nigerians to begin to get our electoral process right.
All right, let's quickly go on a commercial break. Thank you for staying with us. Before we went on the break, we were looking at the matter of the U.S. sanctioning those that caused infractions during the electoral process. And we have our guests still with us. In the studio, we have lawyer and public affairs analyst Fred Nzako. And via Zoom, we have Abraham Great also talking to us with regards to this matter. Now, let me come to you, Fred, because Abraham Great said something that I want you to react to. He talked about the timing of this matter, that the U.S. is bringing this sanction, and that the fact that this matter is in court. And so the U.S. shouldn't have been putting this forward at this time.
No, it doesn't hurt the matter that is in court, because even as we speak, nobody is standing trial for any electoral offense or any electoral breach. Nobody. The whole matter in court today is the issue of contestation as to who won
The
what.
election, yeah.
All right? And so who had won and who had lost. That is the matter in court. And it does not have anything to do with who has committed electoral breaches. If anybody has gone to court on the issue of committance of electoral breaches against another party, it is still something that will be discussed by the judiciary, but nobody is on trial with respect to breach of the process, infraction of the laws, or even rigging of the elections and the rest of them. So, but the timing is can be said to be late, yes, but you cannot sanction somebody before the action takes place. So there's no other time for the U.S. to bring such sanction until after the election. They give that warning that those who intend to breach the process will be sanctioned. They gave the warning before the election.
Yes.
Now, the election has taken place, and there were a lot of sanctions, a lot of breaches and infractions. Now the U.S. is saying, well, we have listed their names, and we are going to put them on visa ban. The whole essence is that so that if they commit a crisis in Nigeria, they should not hope to come to America to take some shelter. We don't want crisis in the first instance, because there are so many people who cannot even run outside Nigeria. Many people cannot even run to the next neighbor on account of when there is crisis. So we want stability. We want our country to grow. We want development. We want enjoyment of life. We want to enjoy the God-given resources that are abundant in our country. That is the least a Nigerian will ask for. And if the international community is helping us to maintain that stability by giving such a warning, I don't think it is a bad idea at all.
All right. Abraham, let me come to you on this. The point there is, as it is right now, Nigerians are feeling that when friends or allies of Nigeria are assisting to entrench and strengthen the democracy we have, that we should be working internally to complement that. Some said that this imposition of a ban on visa for Nigerians who are presumed to have committed electoral fraud or infraction should be a wake-up call to Nigeria to look inwardly and see how they can put its house or put her house in order. What do you say to this?
Well, America is very strong on its foreign policies, and America is also very strong on its internal policy. But in recent time, we have seen the failings and the trials of the American democracy in itself and the failings of democracy around the world. What I'm particular about is process. In terms of the rule of law, there is nobody, as my colleague in the studio has said, that has been indicted. There's nobody that has been charged to court to have committed any electoral malpractice. And the jurisprudence of America does not have the final say on what happened in Nigeria. It is quite conspicuous that there are anomalies and stuff like that. But when you look at on the legal process, in law, there's something we call the doctrine of substantial evidence or so. I mean, what is the proportion? We have 176,000 polling units. What is the proportion of the anomalies in what percentage of the country? Now, I'm here in Canada. I wasn't there at the election. So my view, I'm only having a balcony view of and I'm not trying to play down the situation, but I am more particular about process, because every act has its reciprocity. Nigeria, in some way, will have to begin to show the world in terms of its own foreign policy. how many, if for example, Nigeria choose to also place a ban based on what happened in America in January 6th, we can begin to be a strong nation. There are things, in Arizona, Kari Lake is probably still in court that is challenging the result and how that election was carried out. A lot of it was shown on public TV, how ballots were dealt with and stuff like that. So in terms of the reciprocal effect, diplomatic effect, the world is wisening up. The timing for me remain a question. But America is a big country. You can't question them. They put a lot of process before they make decision. So there may be more to meet the eye. But I'd like to also deal on something that was said in the studio. I enjoy the conversation and the energy in the studio. But I'd like to remind us that it will be near impossible for foreign countries or foreign organizations to be able to donate any form of money to INEC or to our electoral process, because that will be breaching the electoral law. And finally, you see, when you look at Section 126, from what my colleague was saying from 121, I think the deterrent and the consequence of electoral malpractice in Nigeria, 500,000 for offenders or go to jail for 6 months, the consequence of election malpractices in Nigeria is not strong enough.
All right. Let's bring the conversation to the studio, taking it from where he stopped, talking about the consequences,
Yes,
the fines, and all of it with regards to electoral malpractices. Whoever is found to have been culpable is not strong enough, and the need to strengthen it. Let's get your position.
Yeah, but even the little that you say is available is not being implemented. In some cases, fines of up to 3 years, or imprisonment of up to 3 years, or fines of up to ₦1 million. But the challenge is how many people are dragged to the courts. How many on account of electoral offenses? One of the major problems that have been facing Nigeria development is the reward and punishment system. I've always said this. Our reward and punishment system is terribly skewed against the poor, against the masses. And the rich seems to be overtly and unnecessarily protected in practice, not in law. Because the law sees everybody as equal. The law provides sanctions against infractions. It does not look at anybody's face, and that is the law. But in practice, it's usually the people at the lower rung of the ladder in the society that get punished for whatever they commit. But you find out that when it comes to electoral offenses, the chief offenders are the elite. The chief offenders are the elite. The principle of master-servant relationship, the talk that goes to cause problems or mayhem at the polling units are working for the elite. So if you now extend that action, you hold him, and then he tells you he was sent by Mr. Governor or Mr. Senator or Mr. Rep or Mr. President or whoever. Those are the leaders. And the law says such people, the long arm of the law must even reach to the people who send them. But when you now hold this one, the one on the field, who are the foot soldiers, the one who sent them, the long arm of the law does not get to them. Instead, they cut the arm of the law that is even holding that other one that caused the infraction in the field. And that's why nobody gets punished. Until we tune up our reward and punishment system and punish people for infractions.
What will it take to do that?
What it will take to do that is political will. That's all. Patriotic political will. Each time we talk about political will, that will to do what is right, that will to look at the law and implement it, irrespective of whose ox is God. We mouth it, but we don't implement it. That's our challenge. Apart from the professor that was indicted and taken to court in Akwa Ibom under Mike Igini, who else has ever been, at that level, has ever been punished politically? But even that one, the system also let him free in a very clear and funny manner, because a very top senior advocate went to court and got him on bail pending appeal. I mean, that tells you the kind of system that we operate. And as we speak, the man is on appeal and the man is enjoying freedom. He's not in prison yet. So who have been prison yard, who have been sanctioned, who have paid fines, reasonable fines, even the fine that my brother Abraham is complaining that is low, is not being paid. Nobody is being taken to court. Because the fact that you have taken, you take somebody to court and then pass the person through the crucible of trial, it is enough punishment. And at the end of the day, real sanction is meted on the fellow. You now begin to say it will act as deterrent. And that is what American system is asking us. The rascals that went to Capitol Hill following Donald Trump's failed election, re-election bid, immediately the punishment has started immediately. So the system immediately brought them closer, took them through the judicial process, and those who were found guilty were given some sentences. Who are doing that in Nigeria? You cannot say, oh, because America is also not a saintly country, therefore we will remain insane so that forgiveness will abound. God forbid. Nobody is a saint, but the law is provided to grab those who want to cause those infractions and cause problem in the country and give them adequate sanction and punishment. We will need to begin to give people punishment for offenses and not just to pamper them like my good friend, Sheikh Usani, some with deodorant and some with
insecticides.
Anyway, let's quickly go on this commercial break. Thank you for staying with us. We still have a guest with us looking into the matter of our electoral process and the U.S. Placing visa bans on electoral offenders. And while we were off the air, we're talking about the situation that we had with regards to the Adamawa election, where we saw the resident electoral commissioner announcing, proclaiming a winner where there were no results. And people have been looking at how the INEC swooped to resolve the whole matter. But Nigerians are monitoring what will happen at the end of the day with regards to the resident electoral commissioner. Do you think he will face the law?
Yes, Nigerians are monitoring. Nigerians are expecting that he should face the law because Nigerians have always been worried about the infraction of the system caused by the members of the election management body. And I am of the school of thought that rigging, breaches of the law, electoral offenses cannot easily be committed without collaboration or collusion, in most cases, with electoral management body. In this case, the INEC. Because it is what the INEC says is the result that the court looks at. You want to go to court? The INEC administrative officer, whether at the state level or at national level, will certify the result. It is that certified true copy of the result that the court will look at.
But the agents of each party are meant to sign.
The agents, whether they sign or not, the law says whether they sign or not. It does not matter. And that is why we keep saying that election management body must be above board. Must be above board. And that is where it worries the international community. And if the United States want to extend visa ban to those who frustrate our electoral process, they should beam 80% of their searchlight on INEC and INEC officials. 80%. Because the law has made it that if an outsider, let's say a participant or his agent or his foot soldier, commits any infraction, INEC has the authority to cancel that particular place where there is infraction. Let's say there is overvoting, there is ballot box snatching, and the rest. The law provides that INEC can cancel the result and a more credible one held.
Which they did.
Which they do in some cases. But where that infraction is coming from within INEC, it will be upheld. That is the challenge we have. That is the crux of the matter. And that is why we say that, like in case of Adamawa that you mentioned, the resident electoral commissioner himself, who is the chief INEC official in the state, but not the one that is supposed to declare or announce the results.
Supposed to be the returning officer.
It's supposed to be the returning officer. But you now usurp the powers of the returning officer announce a result without a result.
Yes, announce the result without the result.
Announce a result without a result. Meanwhile, he wrote something, he scribbled something and had it in his hand as if he was going to one kindergarten school to go and give them lecture, and came out and just made a declaration. It was the height of electoral breach. Nigerians are watching. Let us see how this thing will pan out and how it will end, especially when the fellow who he tried to reap the benefit of his infraction comes from the ruling party. So, and that is why Nigerians keep watching and they keep worrying. And that is why we're asking America, if you are placing your visa ban, please put your searchlight not only on politicians, but 80% on INEC officials. And I can tell you, no rigging will take place successfully without the collaboration of the Electoral Management Body. None. None.
Well, good to know. Let's bring Abraham here, who's joining us from Canada. Well, Abraham, the issue there is these individuals that the United States has placed ban on giving them visa. What do they really stand to lose? Can you give us an idea, just an ideal idea? Is it just the U.S. Visa they cannot get, or it extends to other countries that they might want to travel to? Give us a sense of that.
That's a very interesting question, but if I can quickly weigh in on the Adamawa situation, I tend to naturally not look at issues, particularly in Nigeria, on the face value. It is very, very important to look deeper into that election. I'm personally convinced that it is not a straitjacket results that was announced, and that the reg was completely out of order to have announced what he announced. But I'm not convinced that if a woman, in a state, in a northern state, come that close to having a runoff, to also the runoff itself, she's coming that close. What role does suppression play in that election? Perhaps there is something that the reg knows that we do not know that make him to act that improper way. I'm not convinced that that election was won directly, if it was not the fact that the ruling party actually have a case in court that could have, that their interventions and stuff could have seriously impacted that. Maybe there would have been more forces. I think that woman, particularly when you look at the fact that a lot of Christians in the country were campaigning for her, a Muslim woman, and they vote unanimously for her. That election, if I was right there in Nigeria, I would probably be taking that up to probe that election, but it's gone now. Now, the question that you ask in terms of what are the effects, now, every country now thinks independently. In the past, whatever America does, during the time of Tony Blair and George Bush, whatever America does, you see UK will follow suit. But it's no longer the case. Every country now takes their own decision. However, what are the restrictions? I want you to understand that when these travel bans are placed, they are placed on people for non-immigrant visas. So visitors visas, student visa, excursion and stuff like that, they cannot. This ban does not mean, for example, if these individuals have children who file in an immigrant visa for them, because that will mean that they can then petition at the court of law to say, you have restricted my dad or my mom or my sister or my brother. I'm going to court to have that injunction removed. So please understand that these things, they're not fickle, they're serious, but there are ways around that. And American immigration is extremely, very difficult, very tough, and they know what they are doing. But a visa ban is not a final route for that person to get into America. But there could also be a ripple effect where other countries begin to now follow suit and say, okay, we want to also impose this ban. But I want you to understand this. A lot of the people that are at the Electoral Commission are from some part of the country that don't really care about traveling abroad. And when you look at how bad election practices are, and if true, some of the inducement that these people have somebody, if it's true, sometimes we'll read on Twitter that somebody has been paid, $200 million, $220 million. I don't think those figures are correct, or even if I told you people have been paid, I don't believe. But let's just assume if it is if it is correct. Do you think that somebody will bother about going to America if they have that kind of money in their purview and stuff like that? So I think what we need to focus more is the sacrosancy of our own electoral process, our judicial process, our trust to one another. And our system needs to work. We don't need to wait for external bodies to impose sanction on us. Now, here is the thing. There are parties in Nigeria who goes to this country sometimes to lobby that other people will be banned. This last election, I mean, as a legal person myself, I have seen preponderous evidence to suggest that every major party, particularly the three major parties, were involved in rigging. APC, PDP, Labour, they were all. There are sections of the country that their suppressions were more than the rest, every one of them. Now, if a specific party have been handpicked for the ban, that would be unfair, because across all the major parties, there were some anomalies.
All right. Let's look at the matter of improving our capacity to conduct credible elections now, Fred. Every year or whenever we make adjustments to our Electoral Act, it is to ensure that we achieve credible election. It's always an improvement from the previous ones.
Absolutely.
As it stands now, we have seen the infractions. We brought up the beavers machine to check all we used to have in previous time, yet we have seen snatching of even the beavers machine and all of it. Can we really have a system that is foolproof from all of these infractions, and what will it take to do that? What adjustments or amendments do we need moving forward?
Yes, moving forward, one of the major things we need to do is not to base everything on a reactionary mode. We need to be anticipatory and then cut off those things that will make people, predispose people to electoral fraud. And one of them is national orientation. As intangible as it may seem, we need to reorient the mentality, the psyche, the mindset, the understanding of our people. Let them really understand that we don't have any other country other than Nigeria. Let our people understand that patriotism is not all about just paying tax. Patriotism extends to everything you do in relation to your citizenship responsibility. Let them understand that one of the major things that we'll do to ourselves is to give ourselves free, fair, credible election. No matter how well and how good the laws are to be implemented by human beings. And if the human beings implement the laws in breach, you'll see breaches and infractions. But they implement the laws, even without the laws, and they implement it from good conscience. Even when you don't have written laws, God has given every human being the spirit of good conscience. And that is the spirit of discernment between the good and the bad, between the evil and the good. So let us push on that aspect of our human nature and gradually begin to turn around the Nigerian environment. And you start it from the civic education you give to children right from primary school. Let them understand the need to live good life. You may think it is just sermonizing, but I can tell you that orientation plays a lot of role. When somebody sees an action as an end in itself, he tends to be overtly irresponsible in the pursuit of such goal. When our people understand that the election itself is not the end, it is only a process towards getting good governance. So that let us teach them the aspect of getting that good governance, because that is the only process. Any other process will mean a breach of the fundamental right of not only the laws, the laws themselves have rights, and then the citizens, yes, the laws have rights. Not only the rights of the law, but the rights of the citizens. You can't talk about autocracy, you can't talk about dictatorship, you can't talk about any other means. The best approach to getting and leading the people is through adult suffrage, which is general election. Let us teach our people it is not a do or die thing. And let us teach our people that they need to really hold this country well. And let them know that if there is catastrophe on ground, nobody is spared. The people you are fighting for and creating problem will be the first to jet out of the country in safe havens, and that's why America is giving this warning. We won't allow you to come to our place. And when other countries begin to tell you that, you sit back and ask yourself, is it really worth it to fight for this election in this way and manner? Even adults need education. Adults need reorientation. Today we are alive, tomorrow we are dead. Let them understand that what happens between when we are alive and when we die is very important and very crucial. Everybody must go sometime, someday.
Right.
It's only the country that will remain. Let us let our people know this. Beyond this national orientation, we also have to strengthen our punishment system. We need to punish the punishment system. We need to drive people to the court. We need to roughen their feathers. We need to give them sanctions. We need to punish them and make sure that they don't do that. And above all, Mike, let us be reactive let us be proactive instead of being reactive. We have deployed technology. The ease of electionary process all around the world today is deployment of technology. We deployed technology in the last election. Human beings mess up the technology. We cannot stop deploying technology.
Exactly.
Instead, let us find another one that will stop human beings from messing them up.
I totally agree with you. I want to stay with you. There was an analogy you made earlier of the foot soldier who goes out there to conduct some
Infractions.
infractions on behalf of some person.
The elite, yes.
Now, do you think that the issues of evidence, where in the court of law there has to be substantial evidence beyond or proven beyond reasonable doubt before somebody is prosecuted? Now, the link between that foot soldier and the person he's doing it for, if there is no evidence to prove or to show that this person was the one who sent this person to do this and do that, as the case may be.
Yes.
Do you think that it makes it also challenging to prosecute these people?
Yeah, we start from the low-hanging fruit. We hold the man that we see at the site of infraction.
Okay.
If he cannot provide who sent him, he bears the punishment all alone. Next time, he will not do such thing because he will say, the last time I chested the bullet for you and I went to prison on your behalf and you abandoned me, you couldn't bring me out. And that is why if the long arm of the law cannot reach the elite that send the foot soldiers to cause problems, the foot soldiers will end problems. I mean, will assimilate the problems and be punished.
They'll bear the
They'll bear the consequences. And when they are, assuming the one was given 3 years imprisonment and no option of fine, or given fine and he couldn't pay it, and he goes to jail and all that, the next time he comes out, even his colleagues will learn from his experience and they will think twice. There's an old saying that says, if a politician sends you to go and do something, hailing you and claiming that he loves you, ask the same politician to give you his daughter's hand in marriage. That's when you will know how much value he places on your life. All right? The foot soldiers who go to scatter everywhere, go to the same politician that sent you and said, Baba, I want to marry your daughter. And then if he doesn't give you dirty slap that hour, that's how you know that he loves you. So by the time they know that chasing the bullet for these politicians really don't work, worth it, gradually you are eliminating the number, reducing the number one by one, and gradually with education and national orientation, we'll get there.
Right. Let me bring the question to you now, Abraham Great. The implication of this, if we are not strengthening our processes on our democracy.
Well, we already seen the implication because who we elect into office determines what we get in governance. And, you cannot have a more effective country more than the brains that you have elected into the system. But these things have to start from the rudiment. There are few other elements. But by the way, I was just enjoying my my big brother Mike and your guest in the office. I love those analogies. It's important that we understand that the establishment of the federal character is meant to bring about equity in the country. It's meant to be able to make Nigeria equitable. But as it is right now, the federal character itself needs to go beyond religion, ethnicity, and stuff like that into the balance between the elite and the people. Governance is still far removed from the people. And that's one of the things. If there's anything that I appreciate about what Labour Party did in this last election, is that Labour Party actually galvanized the people. It was Abraham Lincoln who said that election belongs to the people. Elections, the real thing is that we have a circle of people among which power have rotated. And this agitates the Nigerian populace. People are thinking, now when is it going to be my turn? When am I going to be able to play a part? And we've also seen people of great character in our community that are never, if they ever dare for office, they will not make it. It is always the corrupt politicians. It's always the same faces of people that we know that are even things as little as House of Assembly. So we need to get to a point whereby the big parties that are playing this thing has to be intentional in digging deep into the citizenry and begin to pick out people. But there is a system that breeds corruption in Nigeria. And this is a bit of a digression. But do you know that corruption actually starts in Nigeria from when we're in primary schools? This issue of putting people under pressure from primary school of writing exams and secondary schools where people begin to cheat and begin to have expo for WAEC and stuff like that. Do you know that that is where election malpractice actually starts from? An average person is looking for a way to beat exam, to have parallel or to get into university, because what it takes to get into university in Nigeria, you realize that a lot of this corruption starts from that realm, because an average Nigerian is struggling to get everything. You are struggling to get into school. You are struggling to get into community. You are struggling to get noticed by your family. Everything is a struggle in Nigeria. If we can begin to solve some of this struggle problem and people are at ease, the tension in the country can lie down a little bit. Everywhere I go, I always quote Maslow's hierarchy of need. Maslow says that the first need of human being is the physiological need, okay. The food to eat, the water to breathe. As long as people don't have this thing, you can always incite them to violence or to go and commit crime.
All right. Thank you, Abraham. Let me bring as we try to round off now. Fred, we have a government coming in right now. You've mentioned the issue of the political will to try to be able to uphold the rule of law and ensure that the system is sanitized. Recall that in 2007, when late President Yar'Adua came on board, he flawed the system. He said, well, the election that brought me up here wasn't perfect, so we'll have to look for a way of sanitizing and putting things straight. Commendations to Buhari's government last year when he signed the electoral law and it shaped a lot of things. Now, in upholding that standard and taking it to another level, what do you see the next government coming in doing in that regard, or what would you advise that they do in that regard to strengthen the system?
Yes, they can build on the existing structure. They can build on the existing. The laws can always be amended, but most importantly, the structure itself. People have been saying we can vote from home. Let us deploy technology to a very large extent. We can vote from home. Now the IREV, the Election Review Portal, was established, and today we don't know whether it is strong or not. The government can make it strong and ensure that it is tamper-proof. As time goes on, technology keeps evolving. Let us continue to evolve the technology of election, because we have seen that technology helps in reducing human manipulation. Of course, even in the banking sector, at the government level, e-governance and the rest of them, once we deploy technology, it minimizes, reduces, or in some cases, eliminates completely human manipulation.
All right.
So we need to continue to build on that, deploy more and more technology, and then talk to our people. Okay. Because it is human being that will always manage that technology.
All right, let's leave the conversation here. Gentlemen, we must thank you, lawyer and public affairs analyst Fred Nzako, for your time, as well as public affairs analyst Abraham Great for your time as well.
Many thanks.
Thank you
very much.